to the. Yeah, please go ahead, Maren or Grisanti. Maren is muted.
Maren, can you start the presentation?
Yeah. Can you see my screen or not?
It's difficult to. It's maximum.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I think you're starting, so maybe. But yeah. Well, welcome. That's your turn.
And please talk as loud as possible. We do see the PowerPoint in edit mode. Not sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. How do you do the?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the right corner.
Are you now in presentation mode at your side? Yeah, then it may be a matter of sharing the whole screen.
Yeah.
Except the thing there in the yellow.
Okay. Wacht nou even. Dit is niet goed. Screen. Yeah. Does it work now?
Yeah, now it's looking very good, but please
Okay.
talk loud.
Yeah, I will try.
I'm starting the
Okay, good.
presentation, so-
That's better first. Here.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, for this assignment we have to do analysis of some land administration data that was given to us. And you can change the slide. And we start with some simple thematic maps. Here you just see when we loaded the data into GIS with like no changes. All the data, like we have two CSV files and the rest are shape files that are more like for the geometry.
Yeah, you can go to the next slide. Yeah, and here. Oh.
We had to create a cadastral map, but we needed to show the labels only for important places. I'm not sure, like for important parcel areas. So what we did was we decided to only show labels for parcels that have area bigger than 20,000, and this is how we did it in QGIS, like the whole procedure. We set a rule, so we do the labels based on the rule that they have to be more than 20,000.
The next slide.
Oh yeah, the first map was just a cadastral map. Here we do the characterization. Yeah, okay. And here we're trying to create a thematic map, but based on the value area. So those are the 5 classes that were created automatically for like the different areas, and we see that on this part of the data, like that case, we have bigger areas. They also have different codes that we see 2 categories of codes, the one with W and the one with GD.
Can you change the slide?
We also made another thematic map, but this time we used the OID to make the 5 classes, and it's also automatic, so we didn't choose the differences in the values. Yeah, and yeah, we see the difference in the color based on the ID that we see here. Yeah, the difference in codes.
Can you go to the next slide? Oh,
For the last map that we were asked to create the class again, but based on a virtual attribute that created the number of rings of Polygon. So the categorization based on this virtual attribute that we created. So to number the rings that are created from the polygons that we have for the shape file. And those are the 4 categories that were created. And like we see that the 4th one has only 1 parcel, and most of them are part of the 1st category.
you can continue.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I hope you can hear me. So then we had to join the shapefile with the Excel files. We did that with the join function that you can find at the property of the shapefiles, and by using the common identifiers. So for LA party, the common identifier is OID, and for the LI right, it is the SUID. To compute the number of parcels owned by non-natural persons, we use the expression dialog and a function count distinct. Yeah, that calculates the distinct number of parcels per owner type, and then we filter out the non-natural persons owner type, and then we get the result of 122 parcels. We did the same thing for the number of leased parcels, but then with different inputs in the count in a function, and then we get 3 parcels. And then for the number of not owned parcels, we use the number of leased parcels and the number of parcels classified as other type of rights, and adding them up, it gives a total of 7 not owned parcels. For the first thematic map of question D, we changed the symbology of the shapefile. We categorized the parcels by type of rights, and we did that by selecting the LI right type field in the symbology window, and then creating a map and adding some extra items to the map. The thematic map showing the number of rights per parcel, we, instead of using the fields in the symbology window, we used a function that counts the number of rights per parcel. And we also calculated differently, so not only visually, but numerically. And then we can see that the distribution of is almost half-half for the 1 right and 2 rights, and almost no parcels have zero rights. And then for the last part of question D, we had to find the parcel owned by company 53. And we did that by using the attribute table of the shapefile and then filter the records with the owner name company 53. And then we see that company 53 is or owns the parcel 53. And that was it. Thank you for the attention.
Thanks for your explanation. And I guess the connecting to the web feature service is the second week. So I would like to ask from group 2, Rihanna, to respond.
Yeah, I got some different answers for a couple of those. So I'm still trying to figure out what is the difference. But it looked really nice.
Rihanna, please talk loud because it's very, very difficult to hear.
Okay. It looked very well done and the explanations were clear. Yeah. I don't know.
No, well done. That's fine. Okay, then we move to group 3. Marjolein?
Well, the only question I have is like when you have counted not owned parcels, you also included the other, like it's lease, it's owned, and the other. But do you know for sure other means it's not owned? That's the only question. I don't know if there's an answer.
We're not sure.
Yeah, hopefully if we compare the 3 results, we should get the same answers. So after the 3 presentations, we will probably know. Yeah, I was also having a question about this count, because you had select a specific type. LA right type is lease. But in that expression, and I did not know that expression, you had LA right type 2 times. And 1 times as a normal column, and 1 times as a value LA right type is lease. Could you not do it by mentioning LA right type only once, or does that not work?
Yeah, I think it's working, but I wanted just the result of lease, and then I filter the the calculation out for just the lease parcels, and that's it's sort of a filter.
Okay. Any questions, Hendrik? No. Sophia? No. Okay, let's then move to the second group. Rianne and Rohit. Not sure who will present. Yeah, sure. Sorry.
You did now. Thanks again. You did join the OID from the other one to the but the object identifier differs from the one CSV file is from the other. I'll stop.
I can mute.
Sorry,
now they can. Okay. Let's mute here.
Was it about how we joined the CSV files, or I'm not sure if I understood it correctly. No, yeah, okay, now.
Can you hear Marike or not?
Yeah, I didn't hear the question correctly, I think. Oh. Maybe you can type it in the chat. It's maybe easier.
Okay, my question was, how did you manage to join the extensive CSV files to the spatial unit?
Right.
So maybe I think, are you talking about this slide, like this one? Then how you join this, or?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Well, yeah. I will show the, we'll open QGIS. But I think you did the same, Marike.
Yeah. Oh, sorry for all the noise. You do now join the object identifier to each other.
Yeah.
But if I look to my table, they do differ. But,
Okay.
yeah, I joined them on the personal ID.
Okay. Yeah, I joined on the object identifier, and at the beginning I thought that was wrong because there were some rows were deleted or lost. But then I thought it was okay, but maybe it's not. So I just, yeah. Yeah, it's actually the same thing as in the presentation, but join. Yeah, maybe it's not correct then. Because what was the difference, or what was the error, you think?
Yeah, I'm also now doubting myself, but yeah.
Yeah, I thought that
the object identifier was just a sort of ordering of the list itself. But, yeah,
okay.
maybe we can ask Peter.
Maybe that's it. I thought it's one object identifier is one parcel, but maybe that's wrong. I don't know.
So I try to speak. Yeah, I think the OID is correct, and it is first linking spatial unit to rights, and then you know, okay, what rights are attached to a parcel, and then the next thing you could do is add the other table, the party, and join the party to the previous joint result. So it's a kind of double join. Then you know what person owns what parcel. For example, the company 53. So I think it looked good, but indeed counting the parcels is a good way to see if the total is still correct. I found it a bit suspicious that there were so many doubles. So it is good to go back to the source data and take one example of a parcel where you have double rights and see, okay, is this information also in the original rights table? Maybe. It looks a bit exceptional. Okay, let's move to group number 2. Rianne Roets, you can start to present. I will mute and we'll use Xanti's microphone. That's the best one.
Okay.
Okay, I should start. Yes, so this is our presentation. This is us. Next slide. we've gone up to point number 5. So this is what we have up until now. And I'll start with the first one. One basic map, just to see what we were looking at. Next one. This was I'll try to talk louder. This is the cadastral map. The rule I used for the labels was to use labels for parcels that are bigger than average. And this zoomed out, it's still quite crowded. So I'll try to adapt that rule. Next.
Oh, yes. So then we made some simple thematic maps. Here you can see the area of spatial units in the data set. I divided the legend, used a gradient to show the different types, different categories of the areas, in different intervals. That's the one. So yes, based on reviewing the attribute table to see which intervals would be best. Here you have the thematic map with the system OIDs of the spatial units. It doesn't really show much, only that the northern part does have, maybe they started with the northern part and ended up with the southern part for registering the system OIDs, but it doesn't really say much. Then you have the rings per polygon of spatial units. I calculated that one with the num rings in the field calculator, the attribute table, which calculates the interior as well as the exterior rings. And next.
Yeah, that was a thematic map for the amount of non-natural persons. First, to make this map, we had to do the joint, and I did the joints in the way of Marieke. So with the personal ID and the spatial unit ID. And then I came to 243 features with non-natural as their party identifier. Next. Yeah, so same data, and 3 parcels were labeled lease, and a few others indeed other, but I didn't count those in this question. This one I got stuck. Next. Yeah, and for company 53, I did a search in the attribute table for everything that was labeled as owned by the party 53. And this was the result. So it's the whole area composed of 33 parcels, which is quite a lot. Next.
Okay, and then we did some vector geoprocessing. So the ID was in the question. It says that you have a railroad in purple, the purple line. And what if the railroad would be extended with 20 meters? So you first make a buffer, that's the yellow part. And then you intersect the buffer with the spatial units, which provides you of spatial units, which are affected by the increase in railroad, in width of the railroad. And then you have the spatial units, and with the spatial units, you can filter them to see which only were the owners of the parcels, because the question said which owners of parcels are affected, and some were also lease or other, so you have to filter that out. And after that, you can make a list of the unique values with vector geo, with the analysis and factor analysis, and then you have a list which can be exported. So this is the list of the unique owners of parcels who are affected by the increase in width of the railroad with 20 meters. And you can export this to Excel, for example. Then we also made a connection with the BODOK web feature service. It was suggested to only do 10,000 objects, which you can see here in the south of Holland, which is part of the municipality of Sluis, all the way in the province of Zeeland. And here you can also see the intervals, which were based on reviewing the attribute tables. Then it was also suggested to compute the area of the spatial units, which was done with the field calculator in the attribute table. You cannot see a lot of difference here, but it was also asked to calculate the difference. So here you can see the difference. So where the computed area, the computer area was subtracted of the legal area. So it's, although a lot of do not have a lot of differences, you still see some red spots and some blue spots, where the red spots mean that the legal area was a lot lower than the cadastral computed area, and the blue spots mean it's a lot higher. So, and you can see that the cities here are black, but doesn't mean that they are black just because it's dense. And that's why I kind of zoomed in on the cities. For example, this is the town of Sluis. And here you can see that there's not much difference if you zoom in. These orange parts have to do with our water, for example. Then here you can see another, which is, well, it does have some blue spots. Here is, for example, this is a blue spot. And here. And I also checked the highest positive difference, which is a motorway, which is the legal value is almost more than 4,000 square meters higher than the cadastral value. And the highest negative, and this is motorway, and the highest negative difference is where the legal value is less than 2,397 square meters, less than the cadastral value. And this is these are roads in a residential area, and this is basically just grass and some trees, like, yeah. So I think maybe the difference can be explained by incorrect surveying, for example, or maybe incorrect data input, etc., because it's not so clear why so many roads are incorrectly surveyed. I think it must be that data they did not do it right. Oh. And that was our presentation. Thank you. Are there any questions? You're muted. Yeah.
Okay, again, thanks, Rohit, Rian, for the presentation. I asked also to do some demoing, live demo of QGIS, but also given the time and also be fair to the other group, maybe we should skip the demo now. Let's start with the questions. Maren, do you have a question for?
No, yeah, I think it's, yeah, it was a nice presentation. Yeah, I think we have some differences, but that's what you said, Lianne, with the calculations. So maybe, yeah, I think I will try with what you did and look if that's better.
Indeed, you see the differences.
Yeah. I don't have any questions. I just have to work on or do that part again, I think.
Okay, thanks. Marika?
Yeah, a good presentation, and also very extensive that you already mentioned the following questions. So yeah, good.
Anybody else?
So thank you for your presentation. Yeah, not really questions, but I think that I don't know if it is at the datasets that there was this confusion with the OIDs and the other IDs. But in general, if we want to have the big picture, for example, because you use, let's say, LADM compliant data, we can see many times that when we go to the database level, most of the databases generate by themselves automatically a new ID. So this is something to discuss, and maybe we do have like a global ID, or in order to avoid confusion, how we can deal with this ID confusion, because also myself I have found in this position when when I try to do so. I also have the same problem with QGA, so I always go from the bodies, from the I don't know why it doesn't run.
Avoid messing up the screen. Yeah. Let's check the issue about the IDs. Is it OID or is it spatial unit ID? First, I thought OID sounds nice, but then listening a spatial unit ID, I think that could have indeed be the case.
Or what is the difference?
Yeah, the difference is rather minimal.
Yeah.
So let's look at this data set and so look at the spatial units. Attribute table.
You are not sharing the screen to the rest.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go to the Zoom so everybody can. So I will share now my screen. Go to QGIS. We have the OID and the. Okay, in this case, I'm pretty sure it was the OID. But let's check the right table. Right ID. No, it is the spatial unit ID on which is joined. So that should be joined. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's already generated random, but
yeah. So these are the two important keys. You have the right ID, which can be joined with the spatial unit on one side, on the spatial side, and can be joined with the party ID to the other side, and that is the links there. So good that we check this. Yeah, I will stop sharing.
The LA party does have object
Thematic
ID.
Maps were a bit blurred by the.
LA party does, but LA party does have object ID, right? That one does have OID, which is not. This is not ascending. So. I think so.
You are right, Rohit. In the party table, it's called OID, and that could be considered inconsistent, and it could be party ID over there. That would have been more LADM compliant. So funny enough, in the right table, it is kind of correct. There it was party ID and spatial unit ID. But in spatial unit ID, it was OID, and in the party table, it was also OID. And that is the answer to the puzzle about the identifiers. Let's move to the third group, Marjolein and Marika. Share screen. Oh.
So we got like halfway of the assignment.
So yeah, we're going to talk our maps we created. The last point we didn't do. It's a mistake. It's fair. So what we first did is just we loaded the data, we opened it, we looked at what the data is about, and also at the attribute table, like what is the IDs and stuff. And the same for the CSV files, and we just discussed what it's about. For the initial map, the intersection method was used to only show the buildings that were on parcels, and we showed the different parcels and the buildings with colors, but we didn't add a label yet because we were struggling with the meaning of the meaningful parcels, as the others did. We also talked about the area, maybe just the biggest areas, just show the labels for that, but we were maybe wondering if it can be discussed right now or at the end of the presentation, I don't know.
Yeah, you could link it to scale also.
Yeah.
So one way, so these are now the static maps, but QGIS, you also have the possibility to interact, and then you could make a kind of scale limit where you show the label and when you stop showing the label. I should really check what was the exact formulation. Apparently,
It was like label the meaningful parcels,
which is a bit ambiguous question.
yeah. So that was like in the middle. An intention of what's meaningful.
Very big.
Okay. Okay.
Not sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So then we did some simple thematic maps, like the other groups, like in area and also in OID. I see now that the other groups has a sort of a natural breaks or sort of good to read intervals, so we can adjust those. In the first part, we use the natural breaks from Jenkins, and the other equal counts. But
What I like here is that you don't show the buildings.
Yeah.
And some of the other thematic maps, the buildings are a bit disturbing the image. This is nice.
okay, and then we have also the complexity thematic maps. So we loaded in the CSV files, but how we approach this is what we saw the LA party that has a personal ID and then linked to the LA right personal ID. And then that extensive table, we mapped it to the geographical spatial unit. So then that table is extended with those. So here's what we got with the kind of types like non-natural or natural versions. Yeah, it was also 230 non-natural persons. And then we also have the lease type. We can also have let the buildings out to make it more visible since it's in the same color scheme.
So sometimes buildings help to orient yourself. Where are these parcels? In this nice thematic map, it's nicer if they're not there.
Yeah. So here also the party type and also visually made which parcels company 53 owns. And then we did also with the buffer which parcels are affected by the extended of the railroad. But as you can see, we sort of had a more of duplicates. Like we have 39 rows, but there were at least 19 distinctive type ownerships. So but I didn't know how to do that from a QGIS table. So there needs to be some processing effort or something. And we had 2 questions about the number of rings, but we have seen that previous groups did manage to do that. Also counting the pixel number of rights per parcel. I did have a question about it because I thought that there was only 1 right per parcel, but as you showed, there were also parcels that had 2 or 0. So, okay,
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. How many rights per parcel there are, so it's good to check. Okay, thanks for the presentation. Thanks for presenting. Now to the questions. Crisanti, do you have a question?
I don't have a question. Really, it was a very good presentation, and we found like that we have to maybe do D again. We have some things with the ID. I didn't know for the cadastral map, like we were talking with Marika about it, that maybe we should remove the buildings that don't have a parcel. So I also wanted to ask that from you, because there are buildings without a parcel underneath them. So I don't know how that works. That was my...
Yeah, because it's a strange selection out of the real world. And it's not important. So it was just to give a small subset and not a complete cadastral map of the Netherlands with some buildings. And it does not have any real meaning. But indeed, it is nicer to remove the buildings that were not in a parcel. But it was not an assignment or part. That was not part of the assignment.
Okay. No, I don't really have questions. We have to, work a little bit more.
Okay, Rohit.
I do have a question. Could you share your screen again?
Okay. Do you have a question?
Yeah, but could she share a screen again? Because I had a question about the buffer. I did a different buffer for the railroads. Could you? Oh yes. So here before the image with the buffer of the railroads. So how did you do this buffer? Because I simply did a buffer on the railroad, but you also, because I didn't do this type of buffer.
There was already a shape file of the buffer itself, and then I sort of intersected with the spatial units underneath it. But I did the intersection and also the touch version. But I can see now that there are at the railroad end, you can still see some parcels that would be in sort of the 20 meter distance, but do not intersect or touch it. So I don't know how to filter out those. So
wouldn't it be just better to make
this affected?
Which one? Yeah. Oh yeah. But I can imagine that this is sort of an extended shape, that it starts more underneath, but it's owned by the same person. Yeah. But I do wonder how to do those little ones over there between the railroads.
That was another mistaken data set for the assignment.
You're muted. You're muted. You're muted. Muted.
It's rather tricky to go in both directions like a walkie-talkie.
Okay.
We can in one direction and the other has to be muted. I suggest, if there are no questions now, to have a short break.
Oh, I only had one question about the number of rings.
At 2:45 with the presentation of Eftegia, the guest lecture.
Who?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, sorry. But the number of the number of rings. I did the interior and exterior rings. I assumed that you should do both, right? Okay, just that was it.
Correct.
Okay.